I mean, like, really, he doesn't have any better thing to do to micromanage 8 billion souls.
And then the more I got to know who God is on a deeper level, the more there's that kind of wonder.
Religion and God together, they go hand in hand. They are not able to take out God from religion.
Welcome to Spiritual Sense. Today we're talking about how to experience God's presence in your daily life, in your normal life, how to receive that wonderful company, that love, peace, good vibrations, so that every day is a blessed day, every day gets easier and easier. How can we actually have that experience more and more and more? That's what we're diving into today. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Hello, Shireen. How are you doing?
Very good. Thank you, Michael. How are you doing?
Great. Ah, yes.
So how do you experience God?
You know, it's this is one of those very interesting topics, isn't it? When I started on my journey, I was programmed with a religious or Christian idea of God, which was that God is sort of slightly malicious. Like, so there's this idea that God's sort of looking over things, and like if we do anything wrong, we're going to get some thunderbolt out of the sky is going to come and get us. Or so there's this sense that it's a somewhat paranoid mindset that is instilled. I mean, I'm not sure that was intentional, but I sort of picked that up from some of the things that I was told growing up. And so the idea of having a relationship with God when I was younger was not really a particularly pleasant idea, because I'm thinking there's this kind of guy looking down on me, trying to get me. Mm-hmm. So that's not someone I really want to hang out with, you know. And so then when I started practicing meditation, I experienced like this deep unconditional love that had nothing to do with anything I'd ever been told about. It was like a completely different experience. And then the more I got to know who God is on a deeper level, the more there's that kind of wonder, like the wonder of how great God is and what a wonderful being. And so what I'm finding nowadays is that the more I contemplate on how blissful, loving, kind, liberating me from sorrow, just like the magic powers, the consciousness, the more we understand who this being is, the more there's that fascination and interest in being in God's company. And also there's the consciousness that this presence actually improves my life, and it's a more fascinating way of living compared to doing everything on my own with my own limited consciousness, because God has this massive amount of power and we don't have the same power. So when we connect with that energy, with that being, then we receive the vibrations, which makes our whole life feel very different.
Absolutely.
So in essence, that's my experience.
You know, I was thinking that many of the Christian faith traditions, like Christian faith tradition especially, many of them have this PTSD around God, because they kind of equate religion and God together. They go hand in hand. They are not able to take out God from religion. And so what happens is, let's say there is someone in a particular costume and let's say Batman costume, right? Someone in a Batman costume completely covered comes and beats you up, and every time he beats you up, he says, I am Moses beating you up, right? Or I am God beating you up. So what happens is now you are equating God with beating, right? And then there comes a time, as soon as you see the costume or as soon as you hear the word God, then you have PTSD.
Right.
And so I feel that's what's happening, because so many of, like so much of history in the name of God, so many atrocities have been committed. And, like new souls who are Christian souls, right? New Christian souls, they troll us sometimes. Jesus is the only way, blah, 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 right? Like, okay. But what they don't understand is the history of Christianity. Because they're new souls. They must have just come down into the earth in the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So they don't know what happened at the Crusades. They don't know what happened at the Inquisition. They don't know all of those things. They don't know how Christianity, in the name of religion, has really given a lot of people PTSD. And so there is in the zeitgeist of Christianity, or in the zeitgeist of a lot of religions, this God is this very fearing person. You have to fear God. I'm saying all of this at the risk of being trolled again, which I don't care. But growing up Hindu,
we're not like against Christianity.
No,
it's like we're not
I
trying
love
to have
Christ.
a go. It's
right. I absolutely love Christ.
We're just kind of calling out some of the stuff that, because a lot of people come to us and they say, like, the word God triggers them straight away, and they don't want anything to do with it. That's why so many people have given up religion, because they say religion caused all these wars, it's killed all these people, so we can't go along with it.
Right. When they say that, right, religion caused all these wars, first we have to take God out of religion. Second is that's not true for India. Right? It was not religious wars. There were hardly any religious wars. And so you don't feel that way. That's not my experience, right? Growing up in India or learning Indian history, that's not what we learn. People came to conquer us for the money, not for religion, right? I mean, it's the only country in the world where it did not convert to the conquerors' religions. Absolutely the only country in the world. Because every other country that conquered converted to whatever the conquerors converted. Like made it convert, right? Like the Romans were pagans, they weren't Christians. Now all of them are Catholics. Why? Because they came and conquered, and then everyone started following the religion of the conquerors. That's not true in India. So all the wars really were monetary, like for financial gain. The wars were financial gain, whether the British came or the Mughals came, anyone came, right? Was for financial gain, because most of India is still a Hindu nation. And so we don't grow up learning that. So we don't have that kind of attitude toward God. So I'm absolutely not saying Hinduism is better than any other religion. I'm not saying any of those things. All I'm saying is we need to experience God, we have to take God out of religion. And the reason why we have to take God out of religion is, in the Bible there is a saying, and I don't know the exact phrase of this, that God created us in His image. Something to that effect. God created us in His image. I feel we make the mistake of creating God in our image.
Absolutely.
And so it's whether God created us in His image or not, we'll get to that later, but definitely we create God in our image. If our religions say this, if I'm angry, this is happening, then God must be angry. I must fear him. He has this little black book and he's keeping score. Why would he micromanage us? I mean, like, really, he doesn't have any better thing to do to micromanage 8 billion souls and what they're doing, and let me keep tabs. What happened, right? And so I feel that's the fundamental thing we have to do, right? We have to take God out of religion to experience.
It's also the personification, isn't it? So it's like, because people are nasty.
Absolutely,
and
especially
can be
now.
Cruel and awful.
Yes, greed and anger and violence is so much.
Then we think, well, that because people are like that, God must be like that as well. That's the thinking, isn't it? If someone is nasty, then he must be like that too. And then we're afraid. So that's why I picked it up, because there's this anthropomorphization, I think it's called, isn't it?
Where you humanize God, yes. The way you are, you think God is that.
Yeah, so I think this whole thing about even being with God, if we think God is this nasty person who's potentially out to get us, then the idea of being around someone like that isn't actually even an attractive proposition,
right,
is it?
Right. There is a song, right? To know is to love. There is a song. No, to know is to love. It's an old song. To know is to love. And I feel we need to know God. If we know who he is, like you were saying, right, your experience of unconditional love, that has been my experience. I feel so much love. Even this morning, in my meditation, I felt so much love from God. So much love from God. And he doesn't keep score. He's not saying, hey, last night you didn't meditate, and so tonight when you get up, I'm not going to give you love, right? He's not keeping score like that. I can have feelings of guilt, but he doesn't. He's beautiful, benevolent, and magnificent. And we need to understand, right? So instead of humanizing God, we have to have the highest conception of God. Absolutely the highest conception of God. For example, right, some religions say God will punish you for eternity. And I always think, you know what? My dad, who has a lot of shortcomings, who's a human being, and he would not, under any condition, punish someone for eternity for anything. Right? That's a human being. Why would my eternal parent punish me eternally? Like what would someone has to do to get punished eternally? God's not like that, right? So we have to really bring out these preconceived notions we have about God out in the open and really address them. Really address the significance of what is the absolute importance and significance of really having a relationship with God. First take out religion out of this. Even if you go to church, wonderful. Have your relationship with God outside of the confines of a religious institution, right? It should be outside. Your relationship with God should be personal, private, and then you want to go for community and other things, serving, then you do it. That's one. And the other thing is to really have the highest conception, and see if what kind of false beliefs about God are being programmed, like unconsciously have been programmed into my psyche, and really bring it out into the open. Shine a light on them.
It's like if you want to have a relationship with anyone, you need to know who they are, don't you?
Yeah, to know is to love.
Yeah, and it's like in the media, there's all sorts of famous people who have lots of hit pieces against them. And I've heard So I've seen some interview or somebody had a hit piece against them, and they're like, until you're in the limelight yourself and you get these hit pieces, you can't tell whether or not it's true or not, because you don't know the person anyway. So the person who's giving the hit piece doesn't know them, and the people who reading it don't know them either. And so I kind of feel like our general understanding of God is like various people's opinion based on hit pieces.
Right.
You know, and
I know,
so
right? Like recently,
kind of
I
like,
was reading somewhere that there was a hit piece on a couple on some magazine, right? There are 5 other magazines writing about the hit piece of the other magazine.
Exactly.
And I'm thinking, all these
Exactly.
people like have been bombarded 6 times now. Like there was one hit piece and then 5 other magazines are writing hit pieces about that. Talking about that hit
and then
piece.
you find exactly, and then you find out that the person who wrote the hit piece never met the people, doesn't know anything about them, and basically just made it all up. But now it's the truth, because it has like, and then the people that represent those other articles, and then they make short videos about it, and then Google gets it. So now there's 100,000 versions of the same thing based on some random idea. So that sort of sums up our relationship general with God.
So let's say a
hit
celebrity,
pieces.
right? They have hit pieces. It really doesn't make a difference in our life. It doesn't. I mean,
Does to me.
Huh?
What about me? I'm just joking. It depends if you like them or not.
No. Like, who were you talking about?
I'm just joking. No. It's all just fun and games.
I didn't hear you. Anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But with God, having a relationship with God is the most fundamentally important thing that we can do in our lives right now. Because the reason why it is so important to have a relationship with God is because God allows you to know yourself. Knowing God allows you to know yourself. And knowing yourself and self-realization is absolutely the most important thing one can do right now. So if you're not doing this, right, if you're not actively looking at all of the junk we have about God and really trying to establish a relationship with God, not a human being, not anyone who looks like a human being with eyes and stuff, because in our conception of God, God is luminous light. He's divine light, the divine source. And the beauty of God is, even being a divine source, even being just light, He has feelings, He has a personality, He connects with me, He communicates with me, He loves me, I love Him, He's real, right? That kind of real relationship should be established with God. Not some random people you think are God, but the real deal. And that's the most important thing we can do.
And it helps us understand ourselves, because God is not physical, and neither are we. But we have a physical body. And so that's why in this meditation there's the expression, consider yourself to be a soul, the pure consciousness, and then constantly remember God alone. Right, so it's like I'm spiritual and God is spiritual, and then as we have that awareness, we become that experience. We come into that higher vibration, that higher consciousness. Just like if you think about a bad thing that happened in your life, then your mind goes to it and you start to feel that sort of thing and you feel bad about it. So if you think about God and divine light and love and peace and bliss, then we kind of get pulled into that experience. That's why it's so important, because many people, they might not particularly like the idea of connecting to God because of all the reasons we've talked about, but many people know that they want to have higher consciousness or higher frequencies or higher states of being or higher states of happiness and joy. And if you think about it, out of all the things that exist in the whole universe, there's different frequencies of people and things and music and everything. The highest of all is the one, isn't it? Like that's the like the top of the pyramid of the highest type of thing you can experience. And so when I think about this, like out of anything I could be thinking about and focusing on, what is the best of the best of the best of the best? It's God's love and peace and bliss. And also, even thinking about God, one thing I like to do is think, how does God see the world?
Yeah.
Like if I was looking through God's consciousness onto the world, like into my life, like instead of seeing through my usual eyes, if I was seeing through that consciousness, how would everything seem to me? It's a very deep question to ask.
Right.
Because from his point of view is that it's all mystical and perfect and loving and everything is exactly right.
And he loves us.
At a very high level.
Right.
Yeah, and he loves us and he loves everyone else. So what a great way of living compared to the limited consciousness of, oh, this shouldn't happen, blah, 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 I don't like this and that. So there's so many ways of having that connection that we can experience, isn't there?
I was thinking about, like, I wrote down when we decided we were going to have this conversation, I wrote down about 5 tips, 5 steps that would help us have a connection with God. Like the basics, right? The basic is that God is the highest being. It's the highest frequency, like you're saying, right? The highest being there is. So have the highest conception of God. That's the basic, right? We've laid the foundation. But one thing, a few things that we have to remember is, one is that what you were saying is the way God sees the world is there has to be a sense of detachment from the physical. And you have to become spiritual to be able to connect with God, who's a spiritual being. He never takes on a physical body like we do. We come into the cycle of birth and death, and he doesn't come into the cycle of birth and death. And because he doesn't come into the cycle of birth and death, and he's always a spiritual being, the detachment from our physical being, right? Just detachment from the body, detachment from the physical world, and just becoming aware of ourselves as souls, then we can connect. I think that should be the first step. Second step.
Yeah, that's always the first step, isn't it?
First step. Second step.
Yeah.
Second step, I feel that there has to be not only are you seeing yourself as a soul, but you have to see everyone else as divine souls. If you don't see other people as divine souls, then you're not creating that space in your psyche, in the soul, because you have to create that space in the soul to be able to connect with the highest being. Because remember, he's vibrating at a very high frequency. And if you are seeing people as looking at their defects and what's this one is doing, what's that one is doing, you're vibrating at a lower frequency. And so to be able to feel God's presence in your daily life, you have to vibrate at this frequency. And to be able to vibrate at this frequency, you have to see everyone as divine souls. Whatever they did doesn't matter, because you have to vibrate at that frequency. You have to see them as divine souls. Step number 2.
Yeah.
Step number 3.
That's very good. I mean, yeah.
Step number 3 is, I feel that we have to create spaces in our head, in the mind, a space of silence. If we don't have silence, right? If there's a lot of noise in the head, there's a lot of chatter, a lot of things, I want, I don't want, hate, I dislike, I'm jealous, I'm whatever, right? All of this chatter is going on in your head. Then you're not creating a sanctuary for you to, because there has to be a sanctuary. Think of your mind as a temple, not the body as a temple, but the mind as a temple. And if you want God to come and live in your mind, then the mind has to be very pure. It has to be very silent. That you have to create a sanctuary inside the soul. And then you will feel God's presence. Step number 3. Step number 4.
Go ahead, yeah.
What are you thinking?
Well, no, I'm listening to your steps.
Okay. Step number 4. No, I want to see if you want to share something.
No. You've got a step-by-step system. I don't want to mess it up and add a whole bunch of other stuff.
Okay.
In the middle of it.
So step number 4 is altruistic service. That because God is vibrating at such a high frequency, and to really feel God's presence, you shouldn't come from a place of selfishness. And when you come from a place of selfishness, then it kind of takes it out, takes you out of that frequency, of that vibration. So it has to be. I mean, none of us are really altruistic, but as much as possible, to come to people with what can I do for them instead of what can they do for me. To really connect with souls, to really feel like, let me help this person on a spiritual level, instead of thinking, what can I get? Altruistic service. I feel that's very important. We don't understand these very subtle things that take God away from us. Right? Yes, we have these pre-programming going on from past, from religion, all of that pre-programming going on, but also these very fundamental things that we can change right now to be able to feel God's presence. And step number 5, last, and this is a simple step. To know is to love. To know as He is, who He is, and to really pick up wisdom. It doesn't matter which faith tradition you're picking up, but pick up wisdom about God. Not about human beings, not about the prophets, not about the messengers, God. To know is to love.
Right, yeah. And the more we know, and also the more we know how much God does for us, because gratitude is connected to love, isn't it? Right? So the more we are grateful, the more we love. So, and even physical people, like if someone does something for me, then I like them more. If someone does something nice to anyone, right? Let's say you have a problem and someone helps you out. You're like, oh, thank you, in your heart. And then you have love for that person. Whereas if someone causes you sorrow, then you're like, oh, I don't know about this. And it's just... So the more we realize what God is doing to help us out, the more love we have naturally. And then the more love we have, the more we want to have that remembrance. So what are the things that God does for you, Shireen, that you could share? How can someone know what God's doing for them?
You have to get into the zone, right? Getting into the zone is you have to remember you're a soul. And once you remember you're a soul, you realize that for me personally, the number one thing that God did was He's the ocean of knowledge, ocean of wisdom. He gave me a whole bunch of knowledge that liberated me from a million things, right? Every time I think of all the things I got liberated from, I'm so grateful. I don't think I can ever repay God for everything He has done for me.
Mm-hmm.
Because I got liberated from so many things, right? So first one is ocean of wisdom, ocean of knowledge, spiritual knowledge. He gave me knowledge that really help me to know myself, know time, know karma philosophy, know what's going on with people, know everyone, self-realization, self-sovereignty, all of those things. How about you?
Yeah. Yeah, well, knowledge, self-awareness is huge, isn't it? Because otherwise we're ignorant to what's going on.
And the next one, which I really, like my core quality, I feel is joy. And God gave me joy. Just the delight of being alive, of being with Him. I like that. That's what He gave me.
Hooray for joy.
I think that, right? And then I think, no, because I remember for years and years, right? Just being able to be completely peaceful, completely still. I would have so many moments in my meditation of just being very peaceful and very still. And I would think, oh my God, this peace is so beautiful. And I would be with God, right? Be in stillness and peace with God. And I used to think, oh my God, this peace is so beautiful. No one can take this peace away from me. They can take anything away from me, but they can't take this away from me. And I used to feel so good. So I oscillate between three: love, peace, and wisdom. Because this morning, my experience was of that absolute ocean of love.
Love, peace, wisdom. Well, because the thing is, God is the ocean of all the good things that we want. So we can have lots of different experiences, isn't it? Depending on what we need or what it is. I think the thing I can imagine people watching or listening to this thinking, this sounds very nice, but some of these things sound a bit hard. Do you know what I mean? Like to be altruistically giving and like to be in silence, because that is like
getting
in
$1
some
million
ways
to make $1 million.
Yeah, it's like that's kind of the end result of the thing. But if that's the first step, because everyone starts out at the lowest state to begin with,
Right,
and then
we need to start somewhere.
goes up. So we're not necessarily going to be altruistic and like in a state of silence and soul conscious and all the rest of it when we start off. So let's just imagine somebody is having a hard time, they're stressed out,
right?
their mind.
We can be. It's a mindset shift. I agree with you in terms of silence, but let's say altruistic. I can have a mindset shift. Instead of thinking, what about me, grab, just go into relationships thinking, we're not asking you to give physical things. You don't have money, don't worry about it. Don't give that. Give good wishes, give pure feelings. Don't go into relationships thinking, what can I get? Right? That's a mindset shift. We can do that. It's not, we have to start somewhere. I feel we should start there.
Yeah, I'm just sharing from the point of view of someone who is stressed out. So let's imagine somebody is stressed out and they're in pain and they want to connect. I mean, most people, when they're suffering, like, want to connect with God, don't they? It's very common, like if someone goes through a lot of very, very hard stuff, they start calling out for help, don't they? To God, because they can't handle it themselves.
Just be about soul consciousness. Maybe start at soul consciousness. Think of yourself as a spiritual being, separate from the body, separate from the character, right? You have to start somewhere. You can't just sit here and think, oh, I'm going through all of those, woe is me, and someone come and help me. It's not happening.
Well, that's what people do naturally, isn't it? That's what the whole path of devotion is. Oh, Lord, please help me. I'm in sorrow, isn't it? That's the general starting position from a lot of
how much help,
practices.
right? Like I was talking to someone recently and they were saying how in Facebook it's all, they're Catholic, Hispanic Catholic. oh, Facebook is all about prayer and pray for me and I'll pray for you and this and that. Okay, all of that is happening, and I'm sure you're feeling solace and, comfort from all of that. But at some point, you have to go beyond that and really have a connection.
I think we have to try and understand where people are starting from, and they're in pain, So, like if I think back to my own personal experience, I was having a hard time before I started meditating, and I had a vision. So, it was a bit unexpected. That doesn't really count because that's an unusual experience. But that was God's blessing to me, right? So that wasn't something I did. That was a free gift, in my opinion. So sometimes you get like free blessings that must be from past karma or whatever it is. That's called God's grace. God's grace is where we didn't really do anything particularly good on our side, but because God is merciful and graceful, the grace was with us, and thank goodness it was, because it opened up the consciousness and opened up life. So sometimes we're not in any position to take advantage of anything, and we can't do anything, but we get grace. Isn't that wonderful, right? So hooray for grace. And then the more we get to know ourselves, that we're spiritual beings, and we start to realign our life in a more healthy manner, then it's how I think about it. Like I'm looking outside, right? I'm in front of a window, so there's sun outside, and in the house, you can see the sun behind me over here. But in here, there's no sunshine in this particular room. If I go outside, then I'm in the sun, right? And I get the warmth of the sun. But if I'm in the house, locked up in a cupboard, then I'm not going to get the sun because it's dark. So I kind of feel like a lot of what we do spiritually is just having the intention and being willing to go into the sunshine, which means to be aware that I'm a soul, and to be in, because God's light is shining down anyway. We just have to sort of be open to coming into it through our and through our love, gratitude, knowing who God is, knowing who we are. It's kind of like coming into the sun. And then when we get in the sun, then we feel the love and the light, and then we get the help, the right energy that we need, and then because we get the energy, our capacity to do better actions improves, doesn't it? From that, whereas beforehand we couldn't do. Like I'm sure there's all sorts of things you do today that 30 years ago you just couldn't do at all.
Absolutely,
Thanks to God's
absolutely.
power.
Even keeping my mind still.
Yeah.
But I feel there was a definite intention. I intentionally wanted a relationship with God, right?
Right.
That was very much present. Intentionally, I made it the center of what I wanted. And so I feel we all have that choice. What we are saying is not just go approach God because you want something. You approach God because you want a relationship. And it's a mindset.
Yeah, it's not like a to-do list. It's not
do this and make my relationship better and give me $100.
Give me a new car, please.
Get me a new car, and whatever, right?
Yeah, that's a little bit like children asking parents for Christmas presents or
right. And we all know what about Santa Claus. So we're adult enough to know that doesn't exist. So
breaking people's hearts here, Shireen, today. Good heavens.
I know, right? Totally. What's happening to me?
I don't know what's happened to you. The Santa Claus. At least let them have Santa Claus. Good heavens.
Right.
Little kids could be watching. This is shocking news.
What's happened to me? But this is. I feel people say, "Oh, I'm so hard on myself." But I don't think that's true. I really think people are very lenient with themselves. And we can do mindset shifts. Do we want to live the same rut and same nonsense? Do we want to do that? If the answer is yes, then go ahead, do it. But if the answer is no, then these mindset shifts needs to happen.
Yeah. I mean, what it comes down to is having a genuine spiritual connection with a higher power is a deeply personal thing, and it's also a high-level thing that you have to want to have, and also put the time and work and energy into doing it. I mean, if you think about it, who are the most qualified people for this sort of thing? Are people who've dedicated their lives to try and remember God, aren't they? Right, throughout history. And that traditionally has been like the monks and the nuns, like in religion. And if you read stories from the monks and the nuns, they had a pretty hard time doing it because it's hard, right? So it's someone who, like, they've cancelled everything else and all they're trying to do is have remembrance in whatever way
That's
they
why we need to
understand
do
it.
service. You can't cancel everything else. You need to do service. You have to serve other people.
So you need to do both. But this is a very, very deep topic, right? I think we're kind of like getting around to it in different ways. There's different ways of approaching this, and the thing that I think is perhaps the easiest way of getting started with this whole thing is, who is God? God is a being of love, bliss, joy, peace, the ocean of all good feelings. So that's just good to know, like, who are we talking about here? And what does he do for us? He removes our sorrow and bestows happiness on us, right? So we remember him, we give him our sorrow, and because he wants to take it away, right? That's one of his titles, removing sorrow and bestowing happiness. So when you think, if there was someone who took away all the bad things out of your life and gave you good things, wouldn't you want to be with that person? We'd be like, well, this is great news, right? So he's like that, but on a spiritual level.
I was thinking that ultimately, God is the ocean of love. And to experience that love is very sublime. It's the most beautiful experience there is of this total, pure love and belonging. And so, forget about everything I said. I just want you to remember that. The ocean of love, the ocean of forgiveness, the ocean of pure, generous, altruistic love is waiting for you. And to really connect with God that way, right? To feel that, to experience that, because I've experienced it and it's really sublime. Many times I don't feel sorry for people who have experienced bad things. I feel sorry for people for not experiencing these wonderful, sublime things. Because these wonderful, sublime things are so sublime. And so to really connect with God as the ocean of love, we need belonging and physical bodies, right? Parents, siblings, whatever it is. Physically, we need belonging. In the same way, the soul needs belonging. The soul needs God. And because the soul needs God, because you need God, not the religion God, not all of that. You need the real deal. And so I want you to take that, right? You need the real deal. You need that sense of belonging. And it's very important. Very, very important.
Yay. So we can leave on that note that God is the ocean of love, and we can have that belonging. I mean, all these things are useful. It's worth, there's so many ways of going about anything, and even though what we're trying to say is actually quite straightforward, there's all these layers of complication within us, and all these belief systems and all this programming and all this stuff that makes something that's actually very simple seem complicated, but it isn't. It's just you're remembering God, and I think that word remembrance is a nice word, because it's something that you've already had before, and you're remembering, reconnecting with, and a relationship that you already have had and you already do have. And so we're remembering something that we forgot about. And so that sort of makes it's not something new, it's something old that we're remembering again. And then the more remembrance we have, the more negativity gets cleared out and the better we feel. And the more we feel better, the more we do it. And everything starts to get purified and shifted, and all the nasty stuff gets cleared out from that remembrance.
I was thinking of the slogan of the United States: "In God we trust."
Mm-hmm.
So I want to read the blessing on trust.
Yay.
So this is a blessing to all our listeners. Trust. You trust God with all your heart. His love radiates through you. You whisper a hymn of pure devotion. I trust you, O beloved one. Letting go of any doubts, you feel the warmth of His blessings upon you.
Yay. That's beautiful.
See, I finished on a higher note. Ignore all of the other harsh things. Just take the love. Take the love.
We just take the love. God is love, constantly loving and sending blessings. So that's the key thing. So thank you so much, everyone, for your wonderful presence. Thank you, Shireen, for all your love and blessings.
Thank you, Michael.
And we have lots of meditations on God, God's love, peace, bliss that you can get for free from our other trainings in the description below this video or audio. So thank you. Sending lots and lots of love. Many, many blessings.